Hey, what's up, fellow Hoosiers? Welcome back to another edition of Indiana Football Live. Brett Lewis back here with you, IU radio color analyst. And as you can see, I'm a little bit dressed up for the occasion. In my other job at NFL Network, was called into duty to do some Thursday night football pre and post game ahead of this Chiefs and Broncos matchup tonight. And we will get into that from an IU perspective here in just a little bit as well. But I missed you guys. Glad to be back here with you. Appreciate everyone joining here to talk some IU football. Again, your questions and comments we'll get to towards the end of the show, so feel free to leave those in the comments on the IU Athletics YouTube page if that's where you are watching us from. Shout out to everybody with us on the Indiana Football X page as well. Appreciate the interaction here this evening because this is a great opportunity for Indiana on a national stage as they get set to take their game on the road, back in Big Ten play, going to Ann Arbor on Saturday, big noon kickoff. And a great opportunity and a real challenge, and no question about it. There's let's be real about it. The Michigan Wolverines are arguably the best team in the country, based on the way they've played the last couple of weeks, sitting at number 2 in the polls right now behind Georgia, and every bit worthy to be up there in that conversation with the way that they have played in all three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. And we will get into that as well with some of the players that you need to get familiar with. That'll be a big piece of the game from Michigan's perspective. We'll hit it from IU's perspective as well. So with that said, a big piece of the IU equation going into this game, and has been in what is now 32 of 30. He started 32 of 34 career games for Indiana. And it's our pleasure now to welcome in starting right guard along the offensive line, and a great Hoosier, and has been committed and a big piece of the Hoosier success over the course of the last few years. Welcome to Matthew Bedford. What's up, my friend? Matt, great to be here with you. Thanks for giving us some time here tonight.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
It's awesome, and I really appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time here. I was just talking about the fact that I was here for Thursday Night Football at our NFL Network studios, and on our first episode of Indiana Football Live, we actually had a chance to welcome Cam Jones, right? C4, former IU captain and linebacker, the middle of that defense, onto the program here to chat with us. And it was actually just after a game in which the Chiefs had their first win and he had his first tackle. It has been a big piece of the Chiefs' special teams effort, and is going to get more involved on defense as his career moves on. But what's it like for you, Matt, to kind of see your former teammates excel at the next level?
Man, it's huge seeing C4, especially somebody coming out of my city.
Yes.
He's doing, the best we fought, with his body and everything, and just what he's able to do on the field now is everything that I knew he could do. So I'm glad to see him, man. I'm glad to see him out there prospering.
Yeah, he's doing great, and is always a great ambassador for Indiana. And look, I would not be surprised in the least if the guy he kind of passed the torch to, and Aaron Casey, is the next one from that linebacker room. I mean, we've seen a great baton passing there, right? I mean, you go to T. Gray Scales, to Micah, to Cam, to Aaron. And, look, it's not too long ago, Matt, that, Indiana's putting offensive linemen in the league every year, too. You go back to, Simon Stepanak, and you go back to Dan Feeney. And, there's been a bunch of guys, and Luke Haggard had a chance this last year, played well in the East-West game. How do you look at the NFL and is in terms of something that you want to aspire to?
It's definitely been a dream since I was a child to be a part of an organization on that level and to be on the stage. It's been something that you just work for every day, physically in the weight room, trying to get as strong as possible, and watching as much film, being as smart as possible on the field and everything to take advantage of the opportunities to get you on that stage someday.
And, you are nearing closer to that opportunity just because of the fact that you have been a mainstay along the offensive line for Indiana since 2000 and what did we say was 18, right? In the Michigan State game, right? Coy Cronk goes down, and a young freshman steps up and steps in to the left tackle role against a Big Ten opponent. Think about where you're at now, and then what that moment was like as an 18-year-old, right, getting into the lineup for the first time.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of nerves, stepping in the shoes of somebody that's held it down for, his whole career, just like I have so far,
Yeah.
It was just a big honor at that time, being able to hone in the moment and do my job. And, now, It's all just coming all together. You know, in the past couple of years, everything is built up and it's a big old crescendo up until this moment. So
Yeah,
it's
and
yeah,
and there's a lot of opportunities still left out there, both for you and for this team. And we'll get to the team part of it here in just a second as we get set for the Michigan game at noon on Saturday. But for you, as I mentioned, you started left tackle. You started the season last year at right tackle. You played on the interior at the guard spots, and that's kind of where you're locked in right now at right guard, right next to Khalil Benson and Zach Carpenter on that right side. What is that positional versatility like for you, and what are some of the challenges that go into playing up and down the offensive line?
I mean, for me, I think I've gotten the most out of being so versatile, seeing defenses from different perspectives. You know, seeing how we can use our combinations to take advantage of certain defenses' deficiencies, whether it be they're not gap sound or they can't do good with gap movements, things like that. You know, but in terms of getting plays and actually getting them memorized and everything, it just helps me understand what everybody on the line is doing. And when you're part of an offensive line, it's you got to be connected to the guy next to you. You know, you got to be able to sit there and understand that the guy's responsibilities next to you. So if he needs help, you can help him. You know, and the same thing vice versa. You know, so.
Yeah, and I think it's valuable, and it's valuable as you look towards the next stage of your career as well, with aspirations to play in the NFL. The more you can do is obviously the popular mantra there, and look forward to seeing that. But you got plenty of work left to do here with this group at IU this season. And give us a sense that while we're sitting there on the offensive line, you guys you've been able, for the most part, fortunate to stay healthy, right? You've had essentially the same 5 or 6 guys when Max was in there getting some reps too, to have that consistency up front. How have you guys kind of formed a nice bond together and kind of approached that from that togetherness standpoint moving forward?
Yeah, it builds up so much chemistry. You know, and when
Yeah.
you have guys flying in and out, it makes it kind of hard to be able to communicate well amongst each other.
Yeah.
Because one guy maybe communicates a different way than another guy, or one guy may need a little bit more communication than the other guy. You know what I'm saying? So it's just
Sure.
it helps us understand, helps us be able to regulate the communication and amongst each other because we built that chemistry. You know, we're in
Yeah.
loud, and we're gonna need it this weekend in that loud environment to be able to communicate well. So yeah, it
Better
just builds a
believe it.
chemistry.
110,000 strong, obviously always expected at the big house in Ann Arbor. So the experience of your offensive line unit is really concentrated in the center, right? In the interior, I should say, with center Zach Carpenter, left guard Mike Kadick, and you at the right guard spot. Khalil Benson saw plenty of time last year, right? Both at right guard and we've also seen him now this year at right tackle. Carter Smith starting full time for the first time this year. How have the new guys kind of jumped into the mix along the offensive unit?
I mean, they're doing exactly what they need to do. They're
Yeah.
running the show at tackles like they
Yeah.
need to, handling their edges, and taking the coaching. You know, every practice we're just trying to get better, and that's one thing being between me and Mike. Being the older guys in the room is that's a work ethic that's been established within us. When we were, like you said, in 2019, we were seeing the field at times and
Yep.
everything. Simon Stepaniak and guys that have gone to the league like Luke Haggard and them, just keeping the work level going. So that's kind of been the thing.
So what's the vibe among this team right now? Obviously, the last time out didn't go the way anyone expected or wanted against Maryland, but obviously another opportunity now to kind of recalibrate for this season during the bye week. Obviously, some change at the offensive coordinator spot with a guy you know very well, and Rod Carey, who jumped in to be your offensive line coach last year, now running the offense this year moving forward. What has been the vibe among offensive players in particular to try to get this thing settled and straightened out?
Yeah, we're ready to prove. We're ready to get out there and show everybody that we can move the ball the way we need to,
Yeah.
and get rid of all the excuses. What I'm saying, it's the play calling, it's the O line, it's the wide receiver. Everybody just wants to come out there and do their job the way we need to,
Yeah.
and be able to perform the way. Because when we're doing what we need to, the game is kind of handled. We kind of scored and keep scoring. Our defense comes out and gets the stops, and it's that complementary football that Coach Allen talks about majority of the time. So that's our main goal going into this game.
Yeah, and looking outside of the Indiana State game, which was obviously really good, for pretty much the entirety. That second half of Louisville, man, that was complimentary football, right? That's offense coming out scoring, special teams setting the tone right away, offense coming out and taking advantage of opportunities, defense getting stops, and then the offense coming back out, and there's this momentum that you just feel building and building and building. And then obviously, at the end, it didn't work out the way you wanted down on the goal line. And I know that's obviously been one of the focuses here over the course of the last 10 days since last time out, right? Short yardage goal line. And I imagine you take that pretty personally as an offensive lineman.
Yes, sir. I mean, when you get put in those situations, it's really on the line. It's really on our offensive line to get us across that ball, get us across that line so the ball progresses down the field. So we definitely after that, we took that very personal, and we've dealt with it in practice. We drilled short yardage over and over again. We've taken steps to correct that issue.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to see the fruits of all that labor, because I know it's been a lot of hard work, both from a player and coach perspective during this bye week, to try to figure out how to maximize the things that everybody's been doing well in those bursts through these first 5 games. Okay, lastly here on this game and on this team right now, with Rod Carey stepping in, again, a guy I mentioned that you're familiar with now. I know you were hurt and banged up, during when he stepped in as the offensive line coach, but you obviously got a chance to know him now over the course of the last year plus. How would you describe what Coach Carey brings to this offense from a play caller and offensive coordinator role?
I love his juice and I love his focus. He's a guy that, when we're getting ready to go into the field, he has a little bit of energy. He has a little bit of quirkiness about him at times. But when we're working, we're working. We get straight to business. He reminds me of Coach Bostad, and the way he does things. So I appreciate his energy, and it makes it a good time sometimes to be in practice. Every time we score, he go down there and celebrate with your teammates.
That's right.
Enjoy practice. Football is fun. So I enjoy it. I enjoy his coaching.
And quickly on the opponent, obviously a major challenge this week, especially in the interior, where you got arguably some of the best defensive tackles in the country, with Mason Graham, with Chris Jenkins, and the guys that they could rotate through there. How would you describe that challenge with what Michigan brings up front?
They're big and athletic guys. You definitely have to be spotted up and be in control when you're attacking them and getting them off the ball. And then pass protection, you just gotta know where your eyes got to be and everything, and I feel like it'll take care of itself. I feel like we've practiced well enough in what we need to do with what we've seen on film to be productive this weekend.
And that's all you can ask for, right? Is to use practice to set up the opportunity to maximize what you're capable of on a game day. And that's obviously what this week and what these last 2 weeks really have been about, leading up to this game, noon Eastern on Fox. And of course, you can catch the radio broadcast if you use the Varsity Network app, or if you check out any of the stations that carry Indiana University football with myself and my buddy Don Fisher, the legend. You can also catch it on SiriusXM, our broadcast channel 382, if you are a SiriusXM subscriber. Okay, one last thing here, because I know that name, image, likeness, Matt, is something that is kind of polarizing in college football and in college athletics in general. Obviously, I think it's amazing. I wish that it was around when I was playing back in 2001 and 2005. I mean, the things that we were mostly concerned about in the locker room those days were, man, are we gonna make it? Am I gonna be on the NCAA, the EA Sports NCAA video game? By the way, I was fortunate to be on the last 3 years at IU, wide receiver number 81. Go check it out, back at NCAA 0405. Matt, if you still got your PlayStation 1 hanging around. But I know it's obviously taken on a different form now. And let me start with this, and how you have what's the conversation like amongst your teammates when it comes to name, image, and likeness, whether that's in the locker room, casual conversation, or where you're talking about how it can help and change, college football?
Yeah, definitely. Throughout this process, it's been a lot of more educating my teammates and anything. Like, guys are trying to figure out how to get deals, how to get your name out there. It's mainly through social media,
Sure.
Putting your brand out there and definitely trying to reach out to as many people as possible and networking. through those grapevines, finding ways to build yourself. You kind of got to know who's your crowd and who you reach out to. And most of the times when you know the crowd, you'll get a good response. So that's just been the main thing for me.
And then you had a chance to participate in the NIL Summit a couple of weeks ago, right? Give us a sense of what that was like and how you, again, trying to educate your peers and others on what NIL really can be and should be.
Yeah, like a lot of people, it was a lot of our freshmen and newcomers to the Hoosiers, and it was more so along the lines of just trying to give them the blueprint to how to get their brand started and how to, take advantage of the first NIL deal so that there can be a second. Teach them how to expand their brand, whether it be through who you're reaching out to or what else am I interested in that I can reach out to that can add to my brand, add to myself.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm working with Serena's wellness center, and they're basically based off of recovery and all those things, like flow chambers and cryo chambers and all those things. There's stationed here in Bloomington, and to help me throughout my career, throughout my season and everything.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I mean, like that's what NIL is supposed to be. I mean, because you got a stake in that stuff, especially coming off your injury too. You want to keep that body healthy and ready, and you got to keep that maintenance up on your body all season long. That's really cool, Matt. I salute you. I salute you for your work in that space, and I salute you for being, man, just an awesome Indiana Hoosier. And I know you know what it means to bleed cream and crimson and to fight for the glory of old IU. And I know you're going to do it with your teammates on Saturday at the Big House, and I can't wait to see it, buddy. Thanks so much for giving us a few minutes of your time here tonight.
Man, thank you.
Awesome. Matt Bedford, everybody, here with us on this edition of Indiana Football Live. Really appreciate Matt for being with us on a busy week, right? On a Thursday night, kind of, settling into that game plan. It's all kind of in at this point, and then you hit the road tomorrow for Ann Arbor. I'm going to hit the red-eye flight tonight after post-game of Chiefs and Broncos, and then get set to be in Ann Arbor Friday and ready for the game on Saturday to call it on the radio with my buddy Don Fisher and our pal John Herrick as well. So I want to get you a couple of things. Again, if you have any comments, questions, go ahead and submit those through the Indiana Athletics YouTube page if that's where you're tuning in here tonight. And then, of course, this is always available if you're tuning in live and you're not able to make it next week. We normally do this at 7 o'clock Eastern time, pushed it back a little bit to account for my schedule, and I appreciate Matt being flexible with that. But we're also going to continue to have NFL alumni or IU alumni in the NFL with us throughout this run as we continue being with you every Thursday. Typically, we're on at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But if you're watching us live and you're not able to be with us, later next week at this time, it's going to be available for you on the IU Athletics YouTube page to watch on demand. It'll be available for you on IUHoosiers.com as well. So plenty of ways you can interact and access this content. Also, want to remind you that we're with you every Monday with a special look at IU football in the week that was. We get a chance to interview members of the coaching staff and talk about the game that we just saw. We'll do that for you Monday following the Michigan game. That's on for you 7 p.m. Eastern time over on IUHoosiers.com under the hood with IU football presented by your local Central Indiana Ford dealers. Okay, so before we end this episode, I want to take a look at what Michigan has really done. They have played their two most complete games of the season against their two toughest opponents thus far. And that started with Rutgers. That started with Nebraska the week before. And then, of course, really their last three games. They played, I think, really their three best games. Rutgers, Nebraska, and now most recently Minnesota, where they absolutely dominated 52 points, put up on the scoreboard on the road in Minneapolis and took care of business the way that, look, you're supposed to if you're the number 2 team in the country. This is a physical football team. You know Jim Harbaugh, you know what he represents, what he was at Stanford, and what he was, as an NFL pro, a gritty dude, right, who appreciates that grit and that toughness, and it's certainly on display with his football team. I mentioned it a little bit with Matt Bedford. Want to get to some of the Michigan players to know, and we'll get to the offensive players here in a second, but because we were talking to Matthew Bedford about the defensive front for Michigan, it started out, a lot of people were talking about Chris Jenkins right? He's got the NFL bloodline. His dad played in the league. Really good player, and he's been a really good player this year. But a younger player has really stepped into the spotlight and has kind of grabbed some of those headlines. And you'll see him on Saturday at the Big House, Mason Graham. And so Zach Carpenter and Matt Bedford and Mike Kadick, especially on the interior, will have an opportunity, to showcase what they've been working on. Because Graham is a really good player and has really flashed this year, kind of in the way that Mozzie Smith last year had become a real force on the interior of the defensive line for the Wolverines. So keep an eye out for number 55, Mason Graham will definitely be one to watch. On the second level, Junior Colson's been there for a long time, and he kind of holds down that linebacker crew. And man, dude with a ton of tackles, has played a ton of games. And is just a steady player, always gets that group lined up. They're always in the right place, it seems, and they play really good, tough football over there on the second level. So those linebackers definitely a big piece of the defensive success. And another young player stepping into a shining role over the course of the last couple of games, missed the first couple of games of the season. And again, this was a year in which, leading up to this season, Will Johnson, the cornerback who wears number 2, was getting a ton of publicity and headlines, and rightly so. He's an extremely talented player. And anytime you got a cornerback wearing number 2, well, that brings about some conversation. If you're in that Michigan Wolverines fan base, obviously a number that Charles Woodson wore. And you've had some of the talk about those types of comparisons. And well, I mean, Will Johnson did his best Charles Woodson impression this past week with a pick 6 of Ethan Kaliakmanis in the win over Minnesota. They actually had 2 pick 6s in that game to go along with a really solid offensive output as well. So Will Johnson, the corner, wears number 2, definitely one to watch for on the defensive side for Michigan. On the offensive side of the ball, you know the names by now, right? Blake Corum, absolute stud in the backfield, got hurt at the end of last season. So Donovan Edwards, another stud in the running back room, stepped into a leading role. But both of those guys really handle the majority of the running back touches. And they've got Edwards is a bit more of an explosive player. Blake Corum has plenty of explosive ability, more quickness, and he's got great vision, great patience as a runner. So something that the IU defense will certainly have to understand. Roman Wilson has been the go-to guy at wide receiver, by far their leading receiver, especially in touchdowns, but don't sleep on Cornelius Johnson, who can be an absolute deep threat and was this past week against Minnesota. The offensive line, not much you could say about a unit that's won the Offensive Line of the Year award in consecutive seasons. This is another really good group. There may not be a bunch of highly drafted players that come from that group, but just about all of them are going to have an opportunity to play at the next level. Zach Zinter is probably the best guy in that group. And probably represents, a guy who could be the highest drafted player from their offensive line. They're good, solid players, and they play better as a team and as a unit together. So that is, they are definitely a formidable crew, but one that Indiana's defense has an opportunity here to showcase just how good they are as well. Guys like Andre Carter, Philip Bleedy, Ladarius Cox, Miles Jackson, Linnell Carr, Anthony Jones, that whole group up front has a real opportunity to make their case here this week. And that's why we love college football. That's why we love these opportunities. Look, the last one, you know the name, J.J. McCarthy. He won that starting job in week 2 moving forward last year, guided Michigan into the college football playoff. Yeah, they did it with a majority using the run game last year. Didn't have a ton of plays down the field really until the Ohio State game last year, and then showcased a little bit of it in the college football playoff, although, they met an early exit at the hands of TCU in the college football playoff semifinal. But McCarthy continues to grow and progress, and I think you'll see that they take more shots down the field this year. Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, they got a crew of characters. Obviously, we know A.J. Barner, who's now at Michigan in the tight end spot, but Colston Loveland has really been the guy at tight end. And is a really talented player. So J.J. McCarthy does a real nice job distributing the football to his playmakers. He's got all the talent in the world and is a running threat as well. So you really got to understand your responsibilities and what your job and role is on any given play and any given play call that comes down from the press box and defensive play caller Matt Guerreri. So we got to keep our eye on that. A lot of opportunities here, though, to, again, show that you're up for this challenge. And I think that's why we love playing in the Big Ten. That's why you come to Indiana, for these challenges and for these opportunities to play in front of, the biggest audiences and against the very best. And that's certainly the case this week. All right, so we are going to be back here with you on Monday following the Michigan game. Under the Hood with IU football. Be back here with you 7 p.m. Eastern time over on IUHoosiers.com. And then next week, we will begin to look ahead to homecoming and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights next Thursday for another episode of Indiana Football Live. Be back here with you normal time, 7 p.m. Eastern. So appreciate everybody being with us here on the IU Athletics YouTube page and on the Indiana Football X page. It's been a lot of fun to get to interact with you guys. And so hopefully you keep coming back and keep clicking on this and checking out all the content that we're creating for you this year. Much more still to come. All right, I'm Rhett Lewis, and I will see you at the game on Saturday. Thanks, everybody.